So, welcome back to the pre-show, everyone. Thank you for watching. So, I went home for a hot second and I had two
Mhm.
doctor's appointments, one for my eyes. I was telling you this, right?
Mhm.
We did just speak yesterday. But yeah,
Yes.
I had one for my eyes and one for my skin, and hopefully things are gonna start getting better. But then today at my parents' house, the ceiling started to leak in our basement, and the tank for like their refrigerator started leaking into the ceiling slash floor, like the floor of the main floor, the ceiling of the basement, you know what I mean?
Mhm.
And so I just feel so bad for them because they like, yeah, it's like a big pain in the butt, and they're gonna have to like get the floor torn up and the ceiling taken down. Like, it's just gonna be a huge mess and a hassle. But I don't know. They were like, we've lived in this house almost 20 years and we've never had to use our home insurance, and like they've had the same appliances like all 20 years. So like,
Mhm.
they're like, honestly, it is what it is.
It is what it is.
Yeah.
That just sucks though. But again, how do you like know how to fix that? Or like who do you even call?
I know, they just,
Just
like,
grown up
snapped into
things.
action. I feel like I would just have a breakdown and be like, "Let's
I'd
just
call my
light
parents.
light the place on fire," I guess. Yeah, I don't know, they took it very well, and they were just very level-headed and calm, and my dad was like, "I bet this makes you really wanna own a home right now," and I was like, it's a scam," and he's like, "You'll
It's a
feel differently
scam.
someday," and I'm like, "Okay."
I just signed a lease for my own place. So I'm gonna be moving out. Well, like I signed it. They just have to like finish going over it and stuff. But like my part is all done and submitted. So I'm gonna be moving out in March into my own place. And like I'm very excited, but also like that's scary signing a lease because it's like Katie has talked about how she's like she has commitment issues. Like I do as well in terms of like things that are like very serious. I'm not good at making decisions. I like to have input in decisions. So when this is like solely my own, I don't like it. I need someone else to help tell me if it's a good idea or not. It's
I think
signed.
it's a good idea. I think it's good, but I think leases are probably the scariest thing ever because it's so like serious. The
Mhm.
wording in it is very strict. Like it feels
Yeah.
like they're yelling at me.
Mhm.
And I'm just like, it just feels very intense. And I know it has to be like that because otherwise you could get like screwed over by tenants that it's just like, oh, I'm sorry. Like I didn't mean to upset you by just
And
trying
then
to live here.
I know. And then my dad's going through with me, which I'm like very glad he is. But then he's like keeping on saying like, "Oh, I don't like this," or like, "Oh, I don't like that." He's like, "But they're not going to change that." And I'm just like, "What? Like what?" It's almost stressed me out more
Mhm.
because he like was pointing out things that he didn't like. But then I'm like, "Well, should I not be signing it?" And he was like, "No, it's fine. Like every place is going to be like that." But it just freaks me out then.
Mhm.
I don't know. Not a vibe.
Yeah, well, it'll be good. I'm so excited to come and visit.
Yeah, I'm excited to get a cat. I was already looking online today at like the Humane Society, and the Humane Society has like two cats, which I mean is great because that means like obviously they aren't sitting there by themselves. I'm going to need a cat as soon as I move, so I better be able to find one.
Yeah. Would you be willing to drive to like Milwaukee or like a different town to get one?
Yeah, I would. I think if I knew that there were some there that like I might be interested in. I'm not really like picky. I don't care. Like I don't need to get a kitten or anything because I know like older cats are harder to rehome, but I also don't want to get a cat that's like 10 years old or something and then grow attached to it and know that like I might not have that many years left with it. But then also I
Right.
could be like good final years. I don't know. I'm pretty set. I want a boy cat. I'm pretty
Yeah.
set on that. I had boy cats growing up, and I don't know. I swore I just saw something under my bed, but it's just the shadow of my bed skirt.
Oh my God. Stop.
I don't really have anything else. Should we? Do you have anything else, or should we just jump in?
No, we can just jump in. Buckle up.
Because it's gonna be a long ride.
It's gonna be a wild ride.
No one cares, but we're gonna tell you anyways. This is Popcorn Chats.
What's up, everyone? Welcome back to Popcorn Chats. I'm Katie.
And I'm McKay.
What do you know, bitches? HBO decided to say, I don't care. Y'all will do whatever I want you to do because I know y'all are hoes for me. And we said, you're not wrong, Miss HBO. So here we are. We're covering Euphoria. We didn't know we were covering Euphoria until like 2 days ago. And let's just move on because we have beef. But it's fine.
But we'll always keep coming back, HBO.
Yep, you will never take us away. And honestly, this episode, I could not have asked for anything more. I'm so here for it. I'm in love. Yeah, we're talking about Euphoria, the newest special episode, if y'all don't know, the one following Jules. And it was released on Friday, yesterday, the 22nd of January. And this episode is coming out the 25th. We originally had Andrew and Meredith's episode, our two special guests, the creators of The Promise of the Butterfly, scheduled for this episode. However, they were gracious and kind enough to let us move theirs back. It is recorded and ready to go. So get excited for the first episode of February to be with Andrew and Meredith talking about their film, The Promise of the Butterfly. You have extra time now to go and watch that film on Amazon Prime. It is for free with Prime. So go do that and then come back.
And we know you have Prime.
We know you have Prime, bitch. And if
you steal it from someone, you use someone else's account, everyone has access to Amazon Prime.
It's very easy. But we will regroup on that next week. And now we are watching or talking about Euphoria.
I'm wearing my Rue inspired shirt. It's actually not a Rue shirt. It's a Cruella shirt, but it fits for Rue's character. So I figured I'd wear it tonight because I don't ever wear it around my house because obvious reasons.
Yeah. Should we get into this? My notes are very unorganized, I will just say, because I did watching this episode and then I made the most crackhead dinner of my entire life, trying to get ready.
What'd you make?
Pancakes.
I love pancakes.
I know, but they were just like very chaotic. They were not like cute pancakes. They were super ugly. Oh my God, I forgot we have to do a freaking check-in. How are you? My energy is very off.
Katie's like on something and I'm just like really tired.
Yeah, you're very zen.
I'm tired. I did like manual labor today, which made me tired because I'm a lazy bitch. I'm building another bookcase because, as I talked about in our exclusive visual only pre-show on our YouTube channel, Popcorn Chats, go check it out, subscribe, ring the bell. I'm moving. I got my own place, so I'll be moving in March. So, I mean, if you're watching on YouTube again, you can see behind me, I'm sitting in front of my bookcase and like pretty much all my shelves are filled. So, and I like to display some of my books. Like I have my beautiful collector's edition from Katie of one of my favorite book series ever. Other ones, and I want to be able to display them. So I'm building another bookcase with my dad. But I do just want to say to anyone, I mean, we all know I read a lot, but I just finished Chanel Miller's book, Know My Name. And if you guys don't know who Chanel Miller is, she is Emily Doe from the Stanford sexual assault case Brock Turner was involved in. And let me just say that was the most incredible book I think I have ever read in my entire life. It had me crying every single chapter. It was so emotional, but like her writing style is just insane. She's such an insanely good writer. And it was just beautiful. So I think if you haven't read it and are in the right headspace to read it, it is very heavy. Like it's not a book that I blew through. I did have to like take a lot of breaks in, but she talks a lot about her experience, but then also talking about when Trump was elected, like how that felt for her, and how like Brock Turner's testimony was very similar to Trump's defense of his tapes that came out, and it was like disgusting seeing them side by side. And then talking about when Dr. Ford testified against Brett Kavanaugh, and then the Me Too movement and Harvey Weinstein, and just all these like huge moments. It was just a really, really great book, and I would highly suggest it if you're in the right headspace for it, because like I said, everyone's going through it right now and it is a lot. But
do you have that in like hard copy?
No, I rented it from the library, so I read it on my Kindle, but I'm buying a copy next time I go into Barnes& and Noble because I've seen it in there, and then I'm like, "Oh, I know the library has it, so I'll just check it out," but I'm gonna buy it next time I see it, cause and then I'll let you borrow it.
Yeah, I would love to read that, or I can check it out from the library. That sounds really good. I didn't
Yeah.
know that she even wrote a book, so I'm just behind.
Yeah, it was amazing, it was so good. Anyways, how are you, Katie?
I'm good. I was not good, as we all know. But every time I go to my parents, I just feel like refreshed. They kind of hype me up a little bit and just say like, remind me that I am a bad bitch, and then I just feel like better. Um,
Bad bitch alert,
yeah,
bad bitch alert.
yeah. And also, we did talk to Andrew and Meredith yesterday, and so I'm just riding high after that conversation because they were so sweet and lovely, and I just really enjoyed our conversation. The pod aside, because I feel like it's going to be a really good episode, which I'm very happy about. But also, just it was a nice conversation, even if it wasn't being recorded. And I hope to stay connected with them because I just was very happy after that, and it really
Mhm.
boosted my mood. Also, seeing my parents' dog Josie boosted my mood to the nines. Like, seriously, after when I saw her, I immediately felt better. And oh, she's just the best. She's so cute. She's getting bigger every time I go home, and that sucks, but she's just so cute. She like hugged me when I walked in the door and she was like grabbing my stuff out of my hands with her mouth. It was so cute. And then today when I was leaving, she was like pacing around my car, like she didn't want me to go. Enough about me.
This episode, guys, out of all of the characters, first of all, thank you, Euphoria, for making it happen during COVID. This is what the bitches need. And out of
Yep.
all of the characters, like these two are the two that it makes sense to feature. I saw this tweet where it was like reported Hunter Schafer and Zendaya billing HBO for chiropractor bills for carrying the show on their back. And I do think that's a little unfair because this is an ensemble cast, if you ask me. Like, there are so many incredible characters in this show,
Mhm.
but like out of all of them, these are the two characters to highlight in this off season. Like, I don't really think there's a question about that. I mean, everyone was left up in the air, but really they're the two that make sense to have their own special episode and be dynamic enough, I feel like, to fill 45, 50 minutes of just one-on-one conversation with someone. Like, I can't really imagine doing that with Maddie. I love Maddie's character, but I don't know what that would look like.
I was so happy to have Jules explain so much about like her headspace
Mhm.
regarding so many different things, like her relationship with her mom and her dad, her relationship with Rue, obviously, her relationship with Tyler, and Tyler actually being Nate, her thought process with leaving and everything, and where she stands now with Rue. At the end of the day, Euphoria is like focusing on a different character each time, but it is very rooted in Rue's point of view.
Mhm.
And so we didn't get a whole lot of Jules' perspective and her voice. And we saw her going through these things, but we didn't really understand what she was thinking when she was going through these things. And I want to get into all the different stuff that she covers in such a short
Mhm.
amount of time, but man, I'm so happy. I feel like this episode did so much and it's going to make the next season of Euphoria so much richer, a richer viewing experience when we watch Jules's character.
I totally agree. I was left with a lot of confusion around Jules's character, or like a lot of uncertainty because it's so rooted in Rue's point of view. I don't know. I don't really remember what I said back in our old Euphoria episodes. Those were like episodes 2 and 4 of the podcast. And
Yeah.
now we're in our second year. It was a long time ago. But I do remember being like a little critical of Jules's character and like the way that she treated Rue sometimes. I think because it was hard for me because I didn't see Jules's side of it. Talked about before that like there are a lot of things in Rue that like I see that I think like for me personally I feel like very connected to that character. So
Mhm.
then when I see someone like do certain things like some things that Jules would say to Rue, I was like, you know
Yeah.
what? Don't do that. when this now getting into her headspace just made me look at things completely different. It made me see the other side of things more, where I was more just on Rue's side, not just as a viewer, but also like taking her side almost in like an argument, it felt like. And just hearing Jules say that she loved her and like being able to admit that, because Jules never said that until they were on the platform at that train station. And that whole scene made me angry of like how that all went down.
Mhm.
And I didn't like that she chose to reveal that in that moment. It was just nice to hear that, like, she does love Rue, and that kind of changes the way that then you think back on, like, their relationship.
This gave a lot more insight into the Rue and Jules relationship because I think it is easy to view that relationship as somewhat one-sided, and Jules or some of her actions might be influenced by her wanting to protect Rue and her feeling this responsibility, which she does talk about. You know, just never having heard her say these words that she's saying in this episode, it was kind of up for interpretation about Jules's side of this relationship. And
Mhm.
now we know that she does feel this very heavy weight and responsibility with Rue's sobriety and like her survival almost. But she also says that like Rue is the reason why she's surviving right now too. It just didn't come off that way because we're so rooted in Rue's point of view. But I like where we're at now, where it seems like it's still a very flawed relationship and it's not
Mhm.
just like they both have so much going on personally and they do love each other at the end of the day, but like it's very unlikely that it's going to work out and be all tied up in a pretty ribbon, even though I want it to work out so
I
badly.
know. This did definitely turn me into more of like a Rue and Jules shipper, but I agree that I still stand by of saying that like in season 2, I don't think that they should be together romantically because of what you just said. Like they both have so much that they need to figure out on their own, and how they're both very dependent on the other person for happiness, sobriety, like whatever it is, it's a very codependent relationship that they need to be able to figure that out on their own before coming together. So I would love for it to end happily and I want to see them together, but just like I don't think that it would be like a smart choice for either of them.
Yeah, and Jules even says that she's still in love with Tyler, which like is the trauma of all that and everything that Nate did to her and how she's like going to get through that. I don't even know. Like that is just one piece of all that Jules is dealing with, and that alone is like there's no way she could be in a relationship with Rue right now. But then she feels this intense love for Rue, and it's almost like she was in love with both of them at the same time
Mhm.
and feels guilty that she was, like, distracted with Tyler.
I don't think I ever fully understood the absolute hurt and pain that Rue or that Jules must have felt to find out that Tyler was Nate and that it was all a lie. Like, I
Mhm.
don't think I comprehended that. And I was just thinking as she's talking about how they would stay up until like 4 o'clock in the morning talking and much this relationship meant to her and how much she loved him, to then find out that, like, literally everything was a lie. I don't know why that hit me so hard watching it in this episode, and it never did watching the entire 1st season, but I was just like, "Oh, shit." Like, that is just literally horrible.
Yeah, I felt the same way. It didn't register with me in the first season, and I think, again, it's just because it's Rue's point of view that we're rooted in the first season. Her interpretation of that relationship is it's kind of like an "I told you so" thing.
Mhm.
And so I think although we felt bad for Jules and we didn't want her going through that, it was like an outside perspective. Whereas the way it's illustrated in this is so well done. Hunter Schafer and Sam Levinson did an amazing job writing this, and then Hunter did an amazing job. Her performance is like unbelievable.
Mhm.
Yeah, that trauma of having it all be a lie and just dealing with that and still being in love with something that is not real, like isn't even a real person. It was so well illustrated in this
Mhm.
with the fake like her dream person that was in
Yeah.
her like daydream scenarios and the way she was talking about it. Yeah, talking about how she falls in love really easily. She said, I fall in love so easily because half of every relationship is in my head. And I felt that so hard. Yeah, I don't know, just building somebody up in your head. And I think a lot of people do that. In the beginning of that one Ariana Grande song where it's like the voicemail, and the guy's like, here's the thing, you're in love with the person that you've created inside your head, blah blah blah. And he's like, enough is enough, I'm coming over, and it's talking about Mac Miller and everything. And it's just like I think a lot of people do that. Like
Mhm.
everybody just wants to see the best in the person that they love and like has this ideal person that they want to be with. And
Yeah.
I just felt that.
Yeah, and can we just talk about Hunter Schaffer
Yeah.
for a moment? That this only like, it takes a special kind of person to be able to pull off an episode like this. Kind of like with Zendaya's episode for Ruse, and when it's just her and Ali talking in this diner the entire time. There's not really, like, a lot of theatrics, like, it's just a conversation, and we've talked about, like, how that can be, like, the hardest kind of acting because Katie doesn't like when Adam Driver yells because she says that's not acting. Anyways, Hunter Schaffer in this whole episode is just having a conversation with a therapist. I mean, there are those moments then that we're seeing like the dream sequences with the guy and then we're seeing some interactions with her dad, which we'll get into the parents,
Mhm.
but it's just it was so mesmerizing.
Mhm.
Every single line that she was delivering, I was like dripping off of every word that she was giving me. I was so invested in it. And the fact that she wrote this, and I think she added such an authenticity to it because like while Sam Levinson is obviously like a great creator and writer, you could just tell that there was so much of Hunter Schaffer in her talking about conquering femininity, and maybe even if that's not something that like she's faced in her personal life during her transition, if that's still like something that she would be able to wrap her mind around maybe more than like you or I could or like Sam Levinson could.
Mhm.
That I like that it just gave everything like an authentic feel to it. Like I you could just tell that she was feeling everything that she was saying.
Yeah, when you have this like close examination of a trans character, I think you definitely need a trans writer present. I'm very glad that Sam Levinson brought Hunter on to do this. And yeah, it was just whether or not it's close at all to Hunter's own experience, that's not something like who knows and who really cares. Like she still brought such an authentic voice to this and portrayal too. Like every word that she had a hand in writing, she like delivered so well. I personally enjoyed this episode more than the one about Rue, which it was a little bit more dynamic. We did get to leave the therapist's office. When it first started, I thought we were never gonna see the therapist and it was gonna
I
be
thought so too.
Jules the entire time, which I would have been fine with. But
Mhm.
I'm so glad that we got all of the extra stuff that we did.
Interesting that you liked this one more. Is it like because it was a little more artistic, you think, or just like the look into Jules' character, or what?
I just felt like this is something I really wanted with Jules's character.
Mhm.
I think if there's any character in Euphoria that I wanted to sit down in a therapy session with, it's
Mhm.
Jules. And I normally don't like therapy or like therapists being used in as a vehicle to get a character to explain what's going on inside their head. I don't really like that, and I'm guilty of that too in my own writing. I've done that before. So
I was gonna say I have that in one of my books.
I felt like for this, it was like we needed this with Jules, or I
Mhm.
wanted this with Jules. And yeah, it felt more artistic. It felt like a break from Rue, which love Rue as a character, but it was cool to go to a different POV and a different perspective. The artistic quality of it and like the I don't know, I just loved it. I really enjoyed this one. Probably just because it was more dynamic too. Like we weren't in the therapy office the entire time. There was a little bit more going on. Did you like the first one better?
I did. Yeah, I think going back and forth between the two, but I still loved Jules. Like I don't really have any points to dock against it. Like there wasn't anything that I didn't like. And I liked all of the additional things that we got in sight and with Jules, and it definitely brought a lot of like clarity to the relationship and also just made Jules even more dynamic of a character. But I'm, like, so mesmerized by that first episode and, like, how I never once felt stuck in the diner, and I just find Rue such, like, a fascinating character, not any more than Jules necessarily, but there's just something about Rue that I'm so drawn to, and I like her and Ollie's dynamic. I liked the conversations that they had, and I don't know, I think any further exploration that I can get into Rue's head is something that I will always take. I don't know. It's no points against Jules's episode. I just think I would pick Rue's over this one still.
I really liked the eyeball shot at the beginning with the Lord song playing in
That
the
was
background.
so cool.
I liked the film, like the different camera that they used at the beach when she was talking about the ocean and that line, "Sometimes I pray to the ocean." Like,
Mhm.
what the hell, man? That is whew, that's a good one.
And
And
talking about the strength in the ocean and yeah.
yeah, and how it's like this big broad thing, but also so feminine. Like the ocean's definitely not a man. And
Nope.
I was like, yeah, for sure. Womanhood like revolving around what we think men desire and everything, and
Mhm.
how once you don't care about that anymore and are like over that, it's like, well, what is being a woman? Um,
Mhm.
and I think a lot of women reach that point where it's like you kind of have to define it for yourself because society and women as a group have defined it as like what men want. And you know what Jules talks about, how like the way girls view each other and how we like measure each other up, it's like where do you rank on this hierarchy, and the top being like the ideal woman, and that ideal woman is like the man's fantasy, the man's desire or whatever. I don't know. It was so in depth about so many topics in such a short amount of time, but
And on that too, how she was talking, she like this whole time that I've been trying to be like super feminine and to get men's attention, she's like, what do I do now when I don't like men?
yeah.
When she's not interested in men, and now that she realizes that like Rue is someone that she wants, or maybe I don't even know. She didn't really explicitly say like anything about her sexuality, but just that she's like, what do I do, or what does being feminine mean when I'm not interested in men and like don't care about what they're looking for? Then like how does that work? And I thought about that. I'm like, if you've built up your whole image and like your whole mindset of femininity in a way that is appealing to men and like getting men's attention, but then if you realize like I don't want men's attention anymore, like I want Rue, or I maybe want like another woman, or even just like you don't care, it really is kind of like, then what do you do?
Yeah.
Like where do you go from there?
You can't necessarily always confide in other women because it's so ingrained in women as a collective. Like if you don't have your nails done, then you're a lesbian. And like if you, you know, don't wear, like if you just wear certain clothes and everything, like it's all just, if you're not put together in a way that like would be desirable to a man, then you are falling behind and you're not doing it
Mhm.
right. But it's like, you know, who gives a fuck? I wish we could all just do whatever the fuck we wanted. And
Going back to a little bit with what I said earlier of how I was almost like on Rue's side, I just liked that this really explored the whole like there's two sides to every story, and that everyone has their own version of events, and everyone kind of puts themselves at the center of their story. And Rue put us very much at the center, or put herself very much at the center of the story that we were seeing. So
yeah,
this Jules is like putting herself at the center, and it makes a more dynamic relationship for one. But then also just, it's not that Rue's unreliable, but we did kind of talk about that in our first couple episodes, I think, of like that Rue is a bit of an unreliable narrator. And it was just nice to see a different perspective on things. There are still certain situations that I would have liked to gotten more on, But even, like, Halloween, for example, like, you knew something was off with Jules in that
Yeah.
episode, and we, like, don't really know what that is, and Rue can't figure that out either, which now we know she was upset about her mother going into that night, and it just really does bring, like, a whole other dimension, because before you were just like, "What is Jules's problem?"
Yeah.
Where now you're like, "Oh, shit, she's got a lot of stuff going on."
I don't know. I think it just seemed like from Rue's perspective that Jules was kind of leading her on a little bit. They're very affectionate, like best friends. Jules is like, I wanted to kiss her so many times, but she had like just kissed all over Rue's face. I'm like, you did just kiss her. I don't know. Like their dynamic as friends is very loving, and I don't know, just being so rooted in Rue's perspective, it felt like, yeah, we had no idea what was going on with Jules that night. And I remember watching that episode where she eventually leaves at the train station. It's just like she was on one all night. Like she pulled Rue into the pool after Rue was like, no, I don't want to do that. Like it was an uncomfortable night. Like
Mhm.
Rue was uncomfortable. And Jules was clearly going through something, but never talked about it. And yeah, I'm glad we got insight into that. And did we know that her mom was a drug addict?
No. So
I
I
didn't.
think we should get into that because I think that's probably like the biggest piece of information I feel like that we got out of this.
Mm,
Because we had talked about like how before we knew that Rue felt or that Jules felt responsible for Rue's sobriety, we had talked about that and saying
yeah,
that like we can't imagine because Rue does put a lot of it on her and like a lot of pressure on her. And I don't think obviously Rue does that on purpose. I think she does that just out of her own need for Jules. Like she's not doing it to upset her or to make her feel this heavy weight on her shoulders. It's just what she can trust Jules. So
yeah.
she's like, why would I question it? Jules was talking about how Rue had asked her to come to stay over the night one night during like the week and Jules couldn't, and how she was worried then like about Rue and her sobriety is dependent on how available I am to her. And she also said, I feel this weight on my shoulders. And now it makes sense. Or like that would have made sense beforehand, but it like makes it on a whole other deep level knowing that her mom is also a drug addict. And also just knowing that her mom is shitty. Like we already knew that her mom put her in a mental hospital when she was little. So like we already have this against the mom and then to find out too that she struggled with drug addiction and that Jules holds resentment over that too is just another layer to that relationship.
Also, just hearing Jules say it out loud, like I think we did say in our first couple Euphoria episodes, like that we could infer that Jules is feeling. I think we could just tell in Hunter's performance in the first season that Jules did feel a responsibility and a weight for Rue's sobriety, and how she does say like you have to stop doing drugs, like I can't be around you. And now that all carries a lot more weight now that we know that her mom is an addict. And I just think a lot of stuff in this special episode with Jules is like stuff that we knew already, like that trauma with her mom putting her in that hospital. And then hearing Jules talk out why she was so like frozen when Rue kissed her, and how she didn't understand Rue loving her as much as Jules loves Rue. And then
Mhm.
that little flash to her being locked in the mental hospital, like it's brilliant. I don't know.
Mhm.
And even though that's why I think this therapy session works so well, is because even though she's in this setting where she's just like talking everything out, she's not saying like, oh well, my mom put me in a mental hospital and like that made me feel unlovable. All it
Mhm.
took is that little flash and we know like, oh, it's so deep. It's like, yeah,
Mhm.
no shit, you would find it hard to comprehend somebody loving you in this way that Rue loves her. And now Jules in hindsight recognizes the way that Rue loves her, but there's also like a component of it being built up in her head in this perfect world where Rue loves her more than drugs. Oh, so it's difficult.
And two, I liked getting more with her dad because their
Yeah.
relationship seemed really genuine and just like a good relationship in the first season, which I mean, now I guess we kind of see that obviously it's not like perfect, but I do like that even in moments where you can tell that her dad is just like frustrated. Like I feel bad for him because he's trying to like mend these two people that he like has a bond with. He's trying to just bring them back together. So like I get his frustration. Like I get first off why he wants to do that and I get his frustration. But I also like that he never like takes it out on either of them. He more is just like he's not mad at either of them. Like I think you can tell that he sees both sides and that he really is just trying to like make some repairs, but he's not like I would argue that he's not super pushy about it. Like he did come upstairs and was like, please just come downstairs and hear her out. But he didn't like he was trying to be understanding about it still. I don't know. I'm just a fan of her dad. I feel like out of all the parents on the show, he seems like a real one.
Yeah, well, I really liked him in the first season, and this definitely gave me more into insight to his flaws. I think the way he kind of like, I mean, like Jules went through a trauma with her mom, putting her
Mhm.
in that hospital and her like turning away from her during that. Like, that is a really raw spot for Jules, and I thought that her dad like knew that and recognized that, and for him to just like bring her the mom home unannounced
Yeah, he shouldn't have ambushed her.
was kind of wrong, and he saw how Jules was reacting to him saying that the mom wanted to see her. So I don't think he that was okay for him to do that, but I also see what you're saying where like he just wants things to be mended and he does maintain a very like level-headed demeanor. I think his intentions are good, obviously.
But it's also not a relationship that's going to just be fixed. Like they're
Right.
not going to sit down and have one conversation and like how the he said that it's part of the mom's recovery to make amends. Like I think that's kind of bull in the whole recovery process cuz it's like yeah, this person can be in a better spot, but you can't expect like all of the past hurt to just be resolved just on like their get well journey, you know? And maybe that's insensitive, and it very well could be, like, I'm not trying to be insensitive, but I just think that, like, you can't make everything better just because, like, you've made the decision to make better choices in your life. You can't expect other people to just forgive past things, which
Yeah.
I think the mom maybe is looking for. I think the dad too, I think he just wants his family to be able to, like, get along, but also I do think that he's, like, cognizant of the fact that it's not gonna get there, like, overnight.
You can't base your sobriety on people forgiving you for what you did when you weren't sober. I think
Mhm.
you can, as part of your recovery journey, make apologizing a priority, but also you can't force people to hear you out apologizing because we did see Ali in the first special episode, like trying to connect with his children, and it's heartbreaking. Like we see him trying, and we're just like, come on, girls, like accept him back into your life. But it's like he did some really like crappy stuff. Like, didn't he beat their mom in front of them? Like,
Mhm.
so that's I mean, I wouldn't forgive my dad if he did that. So like Euphoria just does such a good job of showing like so many sides to these arguments, and it's interesting because like Rue is who Jules loves most in the world and her mom is who she hates most in the world, and they're both addicts. And the therapist does say like, so you're mad at Rue the way you're mad at your mom. And she's like, no. But she's like, but you resent both of them. And she's like, well, yeah.
I'd like to get more into Jules's relationship with her mom in the next season because I think that's really gonna factor into how her and Rue are able to move forward. Because I think if she can't forgive her mom or like make some sort of not even forgive her because her mom like her actions don't warrant forgiveness, but I think just like come to terms and be able to like move past not move past either. That doesn't sound right either not, like, accept her mom's addiction, but I think it'll play a role in how her and Rue like, how she's gonna handle Rue's addiction moving forward.
Well, I think she has to like process it because this is the first time we're hearing about her mom having an addiction. Like we knew about all the trauma that her mom put her through, but like do we even know if she's told Rue that her mom has an addiction? So like that, and I don't even think she really talked to the therapist much about it. Like it was more just going on in her head,
Mhm.
the addiction part of it. I just think she has to be able to talk about it out loud and like deal with it
Mhm.
herself. Because at the end of the day, you can't just like X stuff that happened out of your life and like completely just like cancel that part of your life. I don't know.
It makes me wonder if that was in the original idea, because I feel like that would have been hinted at maybe more in season 1 if it was, like, from the start that Jules's mom was an addict, or if it was, like, they kinda left it open, and then when they had this episode to just, like, dive into Jules, if they were like, "Okay, well, what can we do?" And if that they were like, "This would make sense."
Yeah, I'm very curious as to what was intended for Jules's character and what has evolved because of Hunter Schafer and because of like reactions to the first season. Because this episode does like flow very well and fit very well with the happenings of the first season. Like it all makes sense. It doesn't seem like they're scrambling to make Jules more likable or for us to like Michaela wasn't a super rules shipper, but now she is because of this episode. Like she's leaning more towards that way. And I don't think they were like, shoot, we have to like try to get people more on board with this relationship because I would be very disappointed if they tie this relationship up in a nice little bow. I do think that they're going to give us like rules content, but it's not going to be portrayed in like a glamorized way, if that makes sense.
Mm-mm.
Because at the end of the day, they're in high school, they're going to the same high school, they're going to be around each other. They're probably going to like get back together. They have these feelings for each other, like, but it's they're still going to be dealing with their stuff, but whatever. I'm very interested. I wish we had some more insight into how this all came about and what the original intention with Jules was and how that shifted and when it shifted.
Yeah, I can't wait for season 2. And as much as I loved these 2 episodes, I am like I wanna know, like, what's going on with everyone else too.
Yep. I just want to shout out Billie Eilish and Rosalia for that song, Get Out. That was amazing. Also, Hunter like really brought it with having the camera like so close to her face
Mhm.
and then having to cry like that. And she cried for a really long time, like when she first kind of broke down. Like that was a long time for the camera to be that close to her face and for her to be crying. I don't know.
Mhm.
She was so amazing. Like she was in it.
I wanna unpack quick. So when she was talking about the online relationships that she has with people, and when she said the appeal to an online relationship is the letdown and that it's not real, I kind of felt that too.
Yeah.
Not in terms of like online relationships, but that while like it's not like ever fun to like have a breakup or have something happen between like you and a person that you're interested in, but there is like, or maybe it's just like the artist or like the creative person inside me, and I don't want to speak for Katie, but I feel like creatives almost thrive a bit on inner turmoil, and I know that is like very inspirational for a lot of like creativity that I like feel and produce. That I don't know, when she said that, like, part the letdown is, like, part of the appeal, because 'cause I'm kinda like, "Oh, shit." Like, we almost, like, romanticize the breakup in a relationship as much as we do the relationship itself.
Yeah, I think creatives just romanticize everything. I really related to what she said because she also said like reality is a letdown or real life is a letdown. There was just a lot of mentioning of like real life and reality and things not being real. Like we had the relationship with Tyler obviously not being real. We had at the end or towards the end when the mom wanted to come and apologize and the dad convinces Jules to just go down and listen to her apologize and Jules is like, well, it's fake, like it's not real. And he's like, all right. And then at the very end when Jules is in the bathroom and the dad's banging on the door and he's saying like,
Mhm.
I'm not leaving without you, like this isn't real life. And then it ends up not being real life, like it ends up being kind of in that like nightmare that she was having where she's in the bathroom with Rue or trying to get in the bathroom. I don't know. It was just very a lot going on. She does say that she struggles with building things up in her head and creating these relationships with people in her head. I don't know. I can relate. I think reality is a total letdown. I love living in my head more, but also living in my head is
Not a fun place
spooky.
to be. I was gonna say it's not a fun place to be, but neither is real life.
Yeah.
So
When she like goes into the bathroom and she's like, Tyler, why are there no pictures of us? And she like looks out and it's just like a dark room. I thought that image was really effective in illustrating that feeling that we were talking about what Nate did to her. Like he really, that is trauma. Like he fucked her up. But then also we know that Nate is fucked up. Like what his dad has done to him is trauma.
mhm.
And what society has done to his dad is trauma. Like
I think that the great thing about Nate Jacobs' character is that trash, but you understand why he's trash. Like you see how he became to be the monster that he is, and that he's not just this way for no reason. And I think, like we talked about in our episode, like everyone knows a Nate Jacobs, and that's scary. And Katie and I had talked about this before, and what's good for like younger people to be seen on screen. And when I go on TikTok, and I haven't seen it as much lately, I think because Euphoria is kind of like out of the cycle a bit, but like when it comes back around, people, young girls making like little clips of Nate Jacobs and being like in love with Nate Jacobs. And I'm like, there is a difference between Jacob Elordi as an actor and as a real life person and his character. Like, if you want to be all about Jacob Elordi, I'll join you. But Nate Jacobs, like, he should not be romanticized like at all. He's not a villain where, and even like I'm kind of guilty of this, of being drawn to like the villain in stories, but even if we are looking at my ultimate villain, Anakin Skywalker, Darth Vader, there are qualities in Anakin that are good, and there are qualities in him that are bad, but there are like innately good things in him, where Nate, we like have not seen that. Like we don't have any reason to believe that he is anything but like an abusive, homophobic asshole. It's like a little scary to see the romanticization of Nate Jacobs.
yeah, and I think that's there's like a level of immaturity with that, but if you watch this episode with Jules, you'll see really the extent of the damage that he's done with something like I don't think people necessarily understand like how bad catfishing is and how bad like what he pretending to be somebody else online, like it can really disturb somebody to do that
Mhm.
and it's invasive. So I feel like this episode really does show the extent of what the manipulation that he put Jules through and the invasion of her privacy that he committed and just it's like
It's disgusting.
yeah, it really makes your skin crawl if you think about it and watch this episode and really take it all in. Because when I was watching it in the first season too, there was just so much else going on. So it's like it didn't really allow you to have the time to like sit with it and really process it and like process what was going on with Jules and Nate. And this episode kind of forced you to do that a little bit more. And I liked how it was just like the one shot of his face pushing her away.
I think we see Tyler in the first season as Rue also sees Tyler, which is like a nuisance and like a blockade between Rue and Jules, where we see Tyler as like a love interest in this, and that's what makes it feel more of a betrayal. And there's a difference between like morally gray and just like evil.
Mhm.
And although evil is even like a strong Nate Jacob, Nate Jacobs is like, yeah. I'd maybe tip him
I
more
mean,
on
I
that side,
would
but
say
he's not like
fucked up.
he's not a morally gray character. Like there's no like maybe he's a good person. It's like from what we've been shown, he's a bad person, but we get why he's a bad person, but he's still a bad person. And this is just inexcusable what he
Right.
did to Jules.
Yeah, he's fucked up for sure. And I mean, I don't even know what the solution is. Like he needs massive therapy. His dad needs massive therapy. Like probably complete mental overhaul talking here.
Mhm.
No moves in that direction, so I'm worried for the Jacobs family, and I'm worried for the, like, damage that they're gonna continue to cause other people until they figure their shit out, but
I don't see him, like, ever understanding the damage that his actions do to other people. Like, I don't think he will ever get that. Like, it won't click in his head. I mean, we'll see where it goes, where his character goes, but I don't see it happening. And I don't necessarily want to see him like get a redemption arc. I'm fine with him like making steps to become a better person, but I don't think they'd do that. I don't think they'd like tie him up in a nice little bow. I don't think anything about this show so far has alluded that anything is going to be like tied up in like this fairy tale ending whenever the show ends. You know, I think it's going to be a pretty realistic depiction.
yeah, I hope so. I hope it continues on this path. There are moments too where we can acknowledge, like, Jules, what she does is fucked up, and what Rue does is fucked up. Like, it's not a good decision. That was a really shitty thing to do. And then episodes like this or scenes, the little insights that we get into each character show us why they're acting that way. And it just makes it such a robust show.
We were talking in our Bridgerton episode how in like all of the conflicts you really saw both the side and neither side was right and neither side was wrong. And I think you see that in Euphoria. Like Jules isn't right, Rue isn't right. Like they're both wrong in their own ways, but they're both like justified in their own ways, and that's what makes it compelling.
And they're both just young too. Like, they
Mhm.
have so much has happened to them, like, and it's so heavy. But it's the same with every kid. Like, every kid has been through so much. It's a thinker, man. I've been my mind has been moving a million miles per hour tonight after watching this episode.
It's a lot to take in. I'm just glad for the insight that we got in this episode into how Jules views herself, her past experiences, her mom, her dad, and like you said, seeing the flaws in her dad, just bringing an extra dynamic to that relationship, but still just like showing that like her that they you can just tell that they have like love between the two of them. I mean, obviously they're father daughter, but I feel like besides Rue and her mom and Nate and his dad, like you don't really get a lot into the parent dynamics. That is just an interesting layer.
Mhm.
Rue and Jules' relationship, Jules and Tyler, like we talked about. There was just a lot that was great and just visually stunning. All of a sudden, when it was like her and Tyler, like her imagination,
Yeah.
those, like, spinning shots and whatever, like, so cool. The beginning, like you talked about with her eye, seeing it all like, season 1 play out.
Yeah.
So cool.
I thought the last shot was really stunning too, with the slow zoom out of her crying through the sunroof thing. Rue's like daydream and Jules's nightmare collided with them
Ooh.
living in New York together. I'm like, what in the hell? Who was it? Like, everybody involved in the creation of this show is like mentally evolved or like spiritually evolved one level, because it just feels so beyond. I don't know, but I just thought that was genius too. How Jules was like, I had a nightmare. And in the first special episode, Rue was like daydreaming about them living in New York together. And then she goes and does drugs, and that's where we leave off. And then Jules comes back from an art show and her nightmare. It's just like this relationship is so flawed because they're so
Mhm.
not on the same page, even when we finally know that they both love each other, because Jules has finally expressed and we know how she feels about Rue now. It's like night and day still. For one of them, it's a nightmare, and the other one, it's a daydream. Like, that's brilliant, man.
I did not put that together. The last shot that we see of Rue in her dream is doing drugs in the bathroom, and then Jules comes home and Rue is locked in the bathroom, like passed out on the floor. I never thought of that. What the fuck, man?
And her like banging on the door and yelling for Rue. That was like, that's when I texted you. I was like, this is sending me right now. It just reminded me of like Rue banging on the door at Fez's apartment.
Oh my god. Fez! I miss Fez.
Me too.
I can't wait to get a Fez episode.
Yeah, so I don't know. Overall, I thought this episode was brilliant. And also the end when Rue comes over and she's like, Merry Christmas, Jules.
I know.
I'm sad, man. And when she just like lays down on the bed and cries, like that's just what I felt like doing.
I don't think I'll ever stop wanting more of this show and these characters. And honestly, if COVID continues, if they decided to do more of these one-off episodes with the characters, I would not complain. I mean, like we said, HBO, you keep messing up our schedule, but we will always be right here for you.
Yes, so we are ready for the content, baby. Let us know, and we will be there.
Guys, it's the end of January. So like we said, make sure that you check out on Amazon Prime The Promise of the Butterfly, and we will be having Andrew and Meredith, the creators of that, on next week. So it's going to be an awesome episode. So you guys definitely are going to want to come back and check that out. If you are listening on Spotify, make sure that you are following us. That way we pop up on your homepage every Monday when we release episodes. If you're listening on Apple Podcasts, make sure that you subscribe and give a rating and review. That helps us out a lot. If you're watching on YouTube, make sure that you subscribe to our channel and hit the notification bell so you are notified every Monday when we get new episodes as well. Check out the description box for our Popcorns Chats TikTok on there as well as all of Katie and I's different social medias. I mean, you guys know the drill.
Support us financially if you want. There's a link if you want to slide us some cashola via Anchor. We have a listener support tab set up there. So there's a link in the description if you feel compelled to help us out. Of course, just you're listening to each and every episode and doing everything Michaela just said is more than enough.
Also, guys, we have a fun February coming up. Mm-hmm. Katie and I just finished kind of outlining our schedule. First of all, there are a couple new releases that we are very excited about that we'll be covering, and we're going to have another installment in the Cringe series coming up. Guys, it's February. There was a big franchise that released their 3 films in February. Every year right around Valentine's Day. Hint, hint, it is another fan fiction turned novel turned movie franchise that Katie and I are very excited to talk about here. It's going to be a wild episode. So yeah, you guys have that to look forward to and some new releases. And then obviously Andrew and Meredith. So it's going to be a good month.
I'm loving the second year of this pod so far. Can't wait to keep going.
It's nice looking ahead to 2021 because in 2020, Katie and I, there was like no new content coming out, which was fine because we have obviously a backlog of content, but it's just nice looking ahead at all of the new stuff that we're going to get to be covering. All right, everyone. We'll see you next week.
Bye, lass.
Bye, lass.